Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9. I'm Paul Kretschmer, and the second of 2 days with law enforcement officer Michael Letts, who now operates a company that provides bulletproof vests to law enforcement officers across the country.
What they did with that is when violent crime is beginning to spike, people are scared. They're scared to go to the grocery store. They're scared to go and walk at night. So the feds have said, never fear, we're here. We're going to handle violent crime. How are you going to handle it? We're going to take away guns. They've already said it publicly. They didn't say we're going to deal with the people who shoot the guns. They say that guns are the problem. Guns causes violent spike in crime, and that's how they're going to effectively deal with it. They're going to take away our guns. And, of course, once they do that and we have a populace that is unarmed and cannot defend itself, then that populace will be forced to bow to its dictatorship. And that's something that we as Americans have a great dislike for. We've never been the kind to bow to a tyranny, to bow to a dictatorship. We didn't do it 250 years ago, and we're not going to do it now.
So it's accurate to say if a gun ban goes through, the only people who will have guns will be the criminals.
That is correct. Because you ask that question, and I do this all the time. I ask top law enforcement officials because I'm in touch with them all across the country. I'm talking about on a federal level. I ask them, so just how do you think the criminals are going to turn their guns in? And if you think about that, what are you smoking? Because we know they're not. The only people that are going to turn their guns in are people that want to be law-abiding. If that's the law, they'll turn their guns in, unfortunately, to their own demise.
I would like to ask you, and if you're willing to respond back, then please do so. Because people of goodwill consider the Justice Department in Washington politicized, is it time to remove the Attorney General from the cabinet and make it a law enforcement civil service position, isolated or insulated, would be the better term, from politics?
Yeah, there's no question about that. And same with the Bureau. First of all, quite frankly, the leadership needs to change in both. Once we remove the leadership, and I'm not just talking about the head leaders, I'm talking about even some of the middle management. They have anybody that has cooperated with the felonious actions that have been done by both agencies, and we can sit here for an hour, I can go a whole list of felonious actions the Department of Justice has done and the FBI. All those need to be removed. Once they are removed, then we need to sit down and say, do we need to restructure? Do we really need them? Do we need separated agencies? Do we need one law enforcement agency for all of the various activities? And what kind of position should that look like? Because you're exactly right. We can never afford in this country to allow the politicalization and weaponization of law enforcement. That's the worst thing that could ever happen. That's the same thing they do. Idi Amin did that in Uganda, and he used the military was his police force. You didn't like it, you were shot. That's exactly where we're headed in this country if we don't do something about it and do it now.
Okay, here's a question that perhaps I could have asked a little bit earlier, but I'll ask you now, which is there really that much of a difference between what happened during the Nixon administration and what's happening now, except that perhaps people could say Nixon did it for political gain, and in the case of people like Hunter Biden, not only are they looking for a political gain, but they're also looking for a payoff?
Yeah, well, I would think there is a huge difference. You say, why do you mean that? Because what Nixon did, he did within his administration and within his political appointees or bureaucrats. What Biden has done is he has weaponized a number of law enforcement agencies. There's a huge difference because a law enforcement agency coming in, people feel compelled to obey. And of course, they also obviously have the power. If you don't, they're going to cuff you and take you away. Nixon's administration was created by, there had been a crime committed, obviously, when they broke into Watergate. But their big concern was to cover up that crime. Their concern was not to take law enforcement and march into people's homes, kick down doors, or tell people you either do what we say or we're going to lock you up. So there's a big difference. The Biden administration has just totally taken these federal agencies, and like I said, it's bad enough to politicize them. But I understand, hey, when you get elected, if your philosophy is one way and then you got elected, you're going to expect your people to support your philosophy. But this is not just that. They're not just politicized. They are weaponized, and unfortunately, they have gotten to the point to where they are willing to commit felonies in defense of their positions. And that is just mind-boggling that they would do that. It has to be stopped. It's stopped immediately.
With that in mind then, sir, what do you recommend listeners do, taking away the action points that you, explanations that you've given us so far? How would you translate those explanation points into an action point that will make an effective difference?
Well, here's what they need to do. There's a number of things. First of all, they need to be prepared to take care of themselves. We're doing two things. Now, I've got the charity Invest. We're supporting our first responders, local and state law enforcement, because quite frankly, they realize that the federal government does not support them. They're being weaponized and politicized, and they are not in support of that. But they don't know whether we, the people, support them. So we need to show that we support our local and state law enforcement. Second thing we need to do is we as a people need to make sure we're able to not only support them, but to back them up. You say we should never be in that position. You're right, but we are. Right now, law enforcement in and of itself has been so torn down and so beat up that we don't have the resources to be able to curb this crisis that is occurring in this country. So every American needs to make sure that they are armed and that they know how to use it, because the time has quickly arrived. They will have to not only defend themselves and their family and their neighbors, but they may be called upon to help defend our freedom with law enforcement itself. So they need to be able to do those things. And then, of course, the next thing they need to do is it comes to where are we at today with elected officials. They need to let their congressmen know that, look, we see that the Justice Department, the FBI and all are beyond the point of being able to rescue them or save them. We demand that those that have broken the law, and we have plenty of ample proof that Garland has done that, Ray has done that, and others, be held accountable, that they be impeached, and that we begin to hold people accountable for their actions. Then we need to go to the next point. We need to tell our congressional leaders that the law, the War Powers Act proves of this, so does the Constitution. It gives us another alternative. If our law enforcement has gotten to the point where they can't be trusted, there's always what we call a military tribunal. Never done before. We've had plenty of military tribunals in war powers across the country, across the globe, but we never use them in the United States. It's time that we, the only people above our law enforcement, DOJ, the FBI, is our military. We need to empower a military tribunal to hold those that have abused the position, those that have broken the law on a very top level, accountable. And that is the other option after military tribunal is a second American Revolution. I would hate to see it come to that point, but those are our options. We're at the point now to where DOJ and FBI cannot be trusted. They've already demonstrated that. They're not going to fix themselves. We have to call for a military tribunal. I appreciate what some congressionals are saying. We're going to hold impeachment proceedings. By all means, move forward with impeachment proceedings, but we know good and well there's not the votes in the Senate to convict. At the end of the day, it'll just be words and verbiage. Nothing will happen. The only thing that can make a true difference is we have to call for a military tribunal.
And to conclude our conversation, Officer Michael, let's then tell listeners contact point to find out more about what you think and any additional information about the organization that you represent, Invest USA.
Thank you so much. If you'll go to our website, that's www.investusa.org. It's a charity.org. They'll find out literally things they can do. They'll find out how they can support their local and state law enforcement. They'll find out what they need to do to be armed, to prepare to defend themselves. And most importantly, all this information we've talked about is available on that site. We have another site called Restoring Justice, and that is all about making sure we destroy this two-tier justice system and have equal liberty and justice for all. They'll be able to go to that site via the Invest site, so there's plenty of information there.
For further information, call us at 860-346-1049, 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer for the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 WIHS.